always looking at it from a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year kind of trajectory on our overall business. But from an AI standpoint, it's hard to look past, 3 years from an automation standpoint versus what it actually will do 3 years from now. It's hard to comprehend that because it is evolving so fast.
Work is changing quickly, irreversibly, and often invisibly. I'm Chris Fanchi, and this show is about understanding where it's headed and how we stay human in the process. Hello and welcome to Human Work After AI, the show where we explore the future of work, technology, and what it means to stay human in the age of AI. We're speaking with founders, technologists, and thinkers who are navigating the shift toward an AI-powered economy. Today's guest is Chris Samaras, a lifelong entrepreneur and the founder of Connect Us, a single-source managed mobility services provider helping organizations scale faster and reduce costs by eliminating the bottlenecks of mobile device deployment. Over the last 17 years, Chris has overseen the deployment of millions of devices, saving clients more than $1 billion while preventing tons of e-waste. His work spans healthcare, logistics, and commercial services, all while exploring how AI and robotics are changing operational efficiency. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. I'm glad to be on.
So I always like to start with my guest's origin story. You've been an entrepreneur since you were 8 years old. Can you take us back to those early ventures and what sparked your interest in technology and business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, naturally, starting a business at 8, it's kind of like trying to figure out how to make some extra money. I didn't grow up in a spot where my family had a ton of money, and it was kind of put on me to kind of figure it out. So I grew up in a neighborhood that happened to expand when I was around 6. Going through the woods one day with my dad as they were expanding the new neighborhood, they were building a golf course. Once that golf course was completed, we were walking through the woods and noticed there were a lot of golf balls in the woods, and quickly thought to myself, man, there's got to be a use for all these golf balls. Well, I convinced my parents to set me up a cooler and a little stand, like most kids do with lemonade stands. I set up a golf ball and soda's Gatorade at the 6th hole, and quickly realized I could make decent money. I was making $50 to $100 a day, and it expanded. When I was 10, I hired one of my buddies to work another hole. And we split I bought all the inventory and provided him the golf balls, and, just kind of grew from there. So fast forward several years later, I started taking an interest in technology. By the age of 12, I started my first website. And, this was early 90s when really not many websites existed at the time. Started putting web banners on a page. It was just an informational page linking to other sites, and realized that you could make money on the web. Fast forward some years past that, I ended up going to Penn State and was making websites for professors instead of working a job at minimum wage, trying to make extra beer money and, spending money while at school and getting good grades. I was able to do that using technology. So once I graduated Penn State, went into pharmaceuticals and quickly understood that in the pharmaceutical market, when something goes generic, you'd be looking for another job. And while I was in a short stint at several pharma companies, I had been on several brands that I had to interview each time each of those brands went generic, and quickly was looking back to my entrepreneur roots, thinking, how can I kind of bridge the gap here and figure out what's next? I came home one day. My mom dropped her otherwise indestructible Nokia phone in the sink, and she went to the AT&T store, where she realized quickly that when you're not getting a free device on a new activation plan, it's a lot of money to buy a new device. It was $450 to replace that Nokia phone. And I said, wait a second, has to be a better way. You mean every time somebody loses or breaks their phone, they have to buy a new one at full cost? I found a refurbish option. And at the time, I had a $3,000 line on my credit card. I bought 20 devices at $150 each. I gave one to my mom and made it a goal to sell online and make $30 a day and double that 4 times. And then I would quit my job sometime thereafter. I doubled that income a lot sooner than I anticipated. And that's when the Blue Dot was born. The Blue Dot was a direct to consumer business selling online. Within a few years, I became one of the top sellers for eBay and Amazon, selling pre owned devices online. Quickly grew. We were shipping 800 to 1,200 devices a day, grew feedback on eBay to over 350,000 feedback. Fast forward 8 years after starting that business, the directions kind of changed with e-com platforms, and I had to kind of figure out what was next. In the middle of the transition, I was trying to figure out what was going to maximize the potential. And that's when I got a call from a carrier rep asking me for 500 BlackBerry devices. I'll never forget it. It was a guy, Kevin, on around 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon asking me for 500 BlackBerries. I initially thought it was one of my buddies pranking me because I could find 500 Blackberries in my sleep. And the carrier rep was telling me he'd been looking everywhere for 6 weeks and that my name had come up several times. Um, I said, Kevin, I can't make any promises to you, but let me see what I can do. I'm pretty confident I can take care of your customer looking for these devices. Within 20 minutes, I already had 3 sources lined up for those 500 devices and called Kevin back. I said, hey, Kevin, I can deliver these to your client in person on Friday of this week. He goes, great, Chris, that's awesome. If you deliver these, I will tell everybody I know about you. And if you don't deliver them, I will also tell everybody about you. I was able to deliver the devices a day earlier than expected. And he did just that. He spread the word. And that's when Connect Us was born, and realized quickly that selling 500 devices to one customer was a lot easier than selling 500 devices to 500 customers. And then realized quickly thereafter, and one of the referrals that he made to me was one of the largest nonprofit companies, and they needed tens of thousands of devices over the course of several years. And that's when the idea clicked that not only is there a need for pre-owned devices at scale, but there's also a need to get those devices configured and end user ready in the hands of whoever's using them. In this case, it was school students in classrooms. That project had a reach of over 2.5 million school kids. And the kids were wearing step counting watches that they use in combination with a tablet. The tablet was something that I provided, and it collected the steps in each classroom. And there was pledges from various companies that contributed money that would then go to third world countries to provide clean water and food supplies. That project was attributed to saving over 9,000 lives, which was pretty
Wow.
crazy to think that a tablet could contribute to saving lives, but it was pretty awesome to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
fast forward from 2014 when I started Connect Us till now, we have successfully shipped over 3 million devices, gave to people over $1 billion. As you mentioned earlier, and tons of tens of thousands of tons of waste to from going into landfills. We sell brand new equipment. Our foot in the door, and when we go up against much larger companies that are sometimes 1,000 times our size, and competing against brand new devices, certified pre-owned option becomes very appealing to a customer looking to save when they're looking for 10,000 devices, and you can save them $250 a device. It results in a real cost savings. I mean, in this case, a
Hmm.
hospital system needed 10,000 devices. We saved them over $2.5 million in the process. And they didn't even, nobody goes to the store asking, hey, do you have that device that was discontinued 2 years ago? It just doesn't make sense. However, we've become partners with the large carriers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and those carriers will come to us uh, when they're looking for an alternative than what might be on their existing line card. And Connectus has evolved into a technology centered company where we're taking all the friction and bottlenecks off our customers' hands so they can focus on core mission and growth objectives. And it's pretty awesome to be a part of over 4,000 companies that have leveraged us to date in helping them do mobility better.
So, what was the process of scaling up the business, going from selling 1,200 devices a day on eBay to suddenly you're talking to enterprises and doing much bigger deals? How did you go about bringing people on board and building a process and a system around that?
Yeah. So initially, I had outsourced all of my operations. I found, I've been an avid reader for some time, and what I came to quickly realize is that you focus on what you're good at. If I was going to do one thing and do it really well, it was building those relationships. I was very good at procurement of those devices. I realized that that was a differentiator, and I realized that I was good at connecting with others. And I realized, if I focus my energy into key areas that are going to maximize the results, the areas that I focus on really were I would go around, present to different carrier teams around the country. I would latch on to like one or two key people on those teams and realize that those people would be my key advocates. They would be the ones that spread the word. If I took care of them and delivered on what I said I'm going to do, and was quick to respond to them. No matter when they called, it was 9 o'clock at night, somebody on the West Coast calling me, asking me for help on a specific situation. I mean, carriers are really driven month over month. They get paid based off of activations. And if they're not going to hit their quota that month, they have to think outside the box. So trying to figure out how to bridge that gap for them, I was able to, always come through on delivering what I said I was going to do, and that built trust, and then expanded from there organically, and it just expanded the reach. And then we were plugged into more and more customers over time. More and more teams became familiar with our services and solutions that we provide. We expanded our portfolio from just doing initial staging and kitting, and evolving to having essentially myself and then outsourcing all that to the near 40-person company we are today. And, just being able to take off as many of the touches required for an end user. So instead of going, for just to paint that picture a little clearer and add some color, I mean, a traditional, you buy a phone, you look at an iPhone, everyone has one, right? But to put a
Mhm.
SIM card, a case, a screen protector, that's like basics, table stakes requirements to get a device into end users' hands. You combine that with finding the case, finding the screen protector, buying the device, getting the activation. You're talking about multi vendors. Now you incorporate the actual software that goes on the device. You have to deal with the licenses, the mobile device management platforms, getting all of that all those physical touches. Somebody has to do all those things. Just to put the case, the screen protector, and a SIM card in a device can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes per device, and you times that by a few hundred or a few thousand devices, that compounds pretty quickly. And if we're able to save them time and take that off of somebody's plate, then they can focus on other things that are going to help their business grow. And it's amazing, as we've, serviced more and more customers, the person that's usually doing all those touches should not be. Whether that's an IT manager, in some cases, it's a salesperson. They're sending them out in the field to their salespeople and they're configuring them. It might be HR, it might be finance. Somebody's doing it as a necessary evil because they have to get the device in whoever's using it on his hands. But if they don't have to, they realize very quickly, and it's usually not until they start utilizing our services, that they realize, wow, I can actually do a lot more now and grow my company. We've helped companies grow from buying 50 devices at a time in 1 year span of time, a period. We were servicing a customer, remote patient monitoring customer, that had bought 350 devices to us in a year. By the seventh purchase of 50 devices, after I got the message across, finally, after saying it 7 times, hey, we can take this off your plate entirely. Let us manage the mobility aspect so that your sales team can focus on driving more growth. your operations team doesn't have to think about, how these devices are getting from point A to Z. We'll manage all the logistics and the deployments. That company, within 3 years, we took them from 350 devices to almost 19,000 devices. So that was over,
Wow.
a 50x growth success story. And once we are able to provide more of those success stories, we've been able to replicate that, and we have a recipe for what works. And that's why, healthcare, transportation, logistics, and commercial services is where our key focus has been. We've serviced virtually every industry vertical that you can imagine that's using a mobile device in the field. And it's really cool to see. And I go out with my kids or my wife or friends, and I'm like, hey, we provided those devices. That's what gets me getting up what drives me to go to work every day is just knowing that we helped a company grow exponentially. And we have tons of use cases where, that has been a part of something that I have contributed to.
Yeah, that's very cool. So having being that you've focused a lot on certified pre-owned devices, how do you balance cost savings with reliability and performance? What kind of testing do you do to ensure that the devices you're delivering are going to be working properly and functional?
Yeah, so a lot of people initially when they hear pre-owned, they're like you can already see it or hear it in their tone that they're kind of reluctant at first. What we do is actually go through a software platform that where we plug every device in, and we go through that certification process. When we say certified pre-owned, we're doing that certification. We plug in a device into a software-based platform that checks everything from battery health to the screen to every aspect, from the volume, getting the microphone, the charge port functionality. When we buy devices, we usually have an average of about an 8% fallout of those devices that we have to work with the vendor to return. By the time we deploy the device and go through that certification process, that that is gets reduced to less than 0.5%. What most people don't realize is that the average return rate for brand new, and with the caveat that it's probably likely due to after the return period expires, that people are probably making some things up, get the device back and get their money back, or swap it out for something else. But the average for brand new is 1.5%. So we're one third of that by with the in certified pre-owned.
Wow, that's great. So our listeners may be wondering, okay, what does all this have to do with AI? Where does the AI play into this? So let's dive into that a little bit. Where is AI currently embedded in your workflows today?
Yeah, sure. We are, we work closely. We have a dedicated development team of 6 people right now that is doing everything from automated workflows, from sales order creation process, from quote, providing a quote to the time we create a sales order and working through that workflow. From there, we then can automate how we are doing purchasing better. We're automating how we can assign who we've purchase history from, and reduce the amount of time of finding things, and making that a lot more efficient. So all the things that we're incorporating in AI have really a efficiency focus, and it's really been impactful on how we are going about. So when we're purchasing to the time of receipt of something, we're able to already have a lot of the pre-steps that are required to get that device through that QC process already accomplished that we can do prior. So IMEI checking, making sure that the IMEI is good and it's not, it's carrier compatible and is not tied to another user or doesn't have build history. That's all done using a component of AI, so that when it does come through, it's assigning based off of who has what specific workload, based off the orders that we have that are pending in our system, and then allocates the devices based off that receipt to the respective QC person. And then from there, we can ship better. So the entire workflow from the purchase and procurement of things to how we are going about receiving things in and how we are going through the QC process. We are currently in the stages of looking into robotics for doing 24/7 quality control. Having the human element is obviously beneficial for certain things, but people go on vacations. People will sometimes win the lottery. People sometimes get sick. I mean, that's the reality of things, and I think that that's really what's driving a lot of this AI, because the reliability, dependability of an actual person doing something, and doing that all within an 8-hour work period versus having the ability to do something 24/7. So the robotics aspect of things is something that we have been looking into for several years and waiting for the technology to evolve to where it's reliable and dependable enough that it is as good or better than a human doing it directly.
So are we getting close to that point? So you talk about some of the physical touch aspects of preparing these devices to go out, adding the screens, the screen protectors and the cases, things like that. Do you feel like we're reaching a point where robotics can take over those repetitive manual tasks?
So yes and no. Where we're in a in our industry, physical. So it's funny because you ask that question, and a lot of people think, oh well, it's a zero touch deployment. Okay, it's a zero touch for getting potentially your once your software is on the device, but somebody has to physically put that software on the device. For mobile device management software, somebody has to put that on a device. We were at one of our sponsors at a recent sales kickoff, happened to be one of the larger MDM software providers, and he's presenting to our team saying, our system is completely automated, it's zero touch, and then our head of sales was like, "Hey, I have a question. Well, does your software put all the screen protection on? Does your software put the cases and the SIM cards, and SIM cards are eventually going to go away. We're quickly moving to eSIMs, but there's a lot of other touch requirements. Somebody has to ship that device. Somebody has to get it physically from point A to Z. I don't think we're that close to being able to fully automate those processes. So it makes our business in some ways very long term. Why, like, we have at least 5 to 10 years before those physical aspects are completely automated through AI. But I think that a lot of the workflow, efficiencies and improvements of that where we can incorporate day to day are very quickly coming to. Uh, there's more and more benefits that we're finding day to day that we can incorporate into how we're pricing things, how we're looking at competitors, how we're getting back to a less than a 15-minute response time to our customers, and being able to drive all that through data that we are populating and doing repetitively over and over again. We can use that information to then provide a better user experience and overall employee experience of not having to do as much to get the information from us to our customers.
So how has AI impacted the actual workforce within your organization over the last couple of years? What kind of impact, how do you project out when we're talking about these new developments in AI and particularly robotics, which seems likely to progress pretty quickly over the next, say, 5 years? How do you build a roadmap and project your workforce out through that time? Does it affect how you train people and where you hire versus where you say maybe we can hold off?
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, primarily because you can't just flip a switch. You have to tell the machine what it needs to do and point it to information that's available to the machine to be able to utilize that information in a way. A lot of that setup for getting everything set up the way we need it to and to meet the customer's demands and expectations, we can. I have a big saying that if it's not uniform and it's not repetitive and we don't have a recipe that's repeatable, it's broken. But getting things uniform and simplifying things is the hardest part. Like, iPhone became very prevalent for a reason. It's this device that works very dependably, and it's fairly easy to use. The fact that my parents that are over 70 years old can functionally use that sort of technology and use it very effectively is very impressive. But getting those simplifications in place takes a lot of brain power and a lot of manpower to get those things in place. So as we're building these things out, we are, looking at the next 3 years constantly and saying, here's the roadmap and prioritizing where our time, effort, energy is going to be able to put those things in place. But we are, it's very resource intensive in terms of putting those systems and being able to put that automation in place and cater that to the customer's needs. So I don't know if that fully answered your question or not, but just we're trying to look at a 3-year roadmap. We have what's called a vision traction organizer. We incorporate EOS into our day to day. So we're always looking at it from a 1, 3, 5, and 10 year kind of trajectory on our overall business. But from an AI standpoint, it's hard to look past, 3 years from an automation standpoint versus what it actually will do 3 years from now is it's hard to comprehend that because it is evolving so fast.
Yeah. Have you found yourself moving personnel from one role to another? Is that part of your roadmap, is training people on different processes as some of them become more automated?
Yeah, we're trying to incorporate that mindset into, it's hard to, I have the vision and trying to get that vision across to my team and seeing how it can be. I'm constantly saying, like, picture your worst day and like most demanding day today and times that by 10. And if we can't do it at a 10x of where we are today, then we have to think like that's how I want our team to think. And I'm constantly trying to get them to think that way so that it's not it's going to give them the ability to focus on those other things. The same way that we're focused on, reducing friction for our customers. Our internal mission is to reduce those friction and bottlenecks so that we can provide that exponential growth. So unless we're doing that as a team internally, we're not going to be able to do that for our customers. So I'm I'm constantly trying to incorporate that mindset with my team so that they can start thinking that way so that we can bring on more customers without everybody running around like in chaos because we don't have those automation things in place. I want them to be able to do more and at the same time not work as hard to get there.
Has this always been your mindset as you've run this company over, it's, you mentioned it's been 11 years, right? Since 2014 when you first started. Did you come in with this process mindset, or is it something that developed over time?
Yeah. So, interestingly, so I went to school. My background from Penn State was I graduated with a management science and information systems degree, and that really gave me a different way to look at things. Even prior to that, I was a systems guy, computer technical guy. I had a technical brain, but I always looked for how do I do this in the least amount of time possible. When I was initially hired by the pharma company, I was brought on to a brand marketing team. They were, I looked at this project. It was taking 6 people 4 weeks to copy and paste information from a database in different places. It was like prone with human error. I was like, man, this like seems like a perfect thing that I can automate. So going back to post graduation, I was able to automate this project to basically pull the information that was required from a database, get it all displayed in Excel the way it was required to be shown to sales forces across the country. And they could literally click a button and get that information populated. Whereas prior it was taking, that many resources, that much time to get that information into somebody's hands. So that's yes, I have naturally thought about that way for some time. And I'm constantly trying to, part of our core values is just continuous improvement. Like, I want people to think about this better than I can. Like I'm always looking at it like, I'm only as good as the other people on my team and I want them to be better than I can. Like I don't have all the answers. I'm going to give you feedback, but I actually intentionally make it difficult for my team to get answers from me because I want them to think. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that that's part of our ongoing challenge in society today in general. Like, as things become simpler and you have easier access to information or answers, people are thinking less and less. But to come up with the next the next best thing, you know, you become a differentiator by having to think outside the box. It's funny. I joke
Mm.
regularly that I attribute a lot of my success to watching a lot of MacGyver and being an Eagle Scout. Just being an Eagle Scout, they teach you a lot of things that you wouldn't learn from a traditional education system, and that helped me to think about things differently. And the MacGyver thing's more or less a joke, but he always would be able to turn a paperclip into some sort of life saving device.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, zooming out a little bit, and I think this is a perfect transition. What human skills do you think are going to be more important as we progress down this automation and AI and robotics path that we're on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm constantly thinking that, Chris. I think the human involvement and being able to be personable and actually there's a reason why people are going back to the office right now. Like there's a post COVID. I feel like more stuff happened at the water cooler and having a conversation with a human than it would if you're working from home and not having that human interaction. That human interaction, like it's just a natural need from people in general. Like, and I don't think any robot is ever going to fully replace that entirely. I don't know. It may. I mean, the way things are accelerating, it may at some point, but in the near distant future, I still see a need for that human interaction. And that's not something that can be replaced by AI today. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. That it's kind of ironic that we've spent the last 30, 40 years really heavily focusing on technical skills. You need all these technical skills to get ahead and be successful. And now the pendulum seems to be swinging back towards those soft skills, or those interpersonal skills are becoming more important because the machines can do all the technical things, but that human interaction, people still crave that human interaction, especially when it comes to business, sales, interactions like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, final question, I'll let you out of here on this. So, how do you see your role as a leader evolving as more decisions and workflows become augmented by AI?
Man, I would love to be able to play golf. You know, clear nearly as many times as some of my friends do. Freeing up time. I mean, being able to spend more time with my family is really important to me. So, anywhere that I can become more efficient, and getting those efficiencies in place does take a lot of time. But as we put those things in place and we have structure, I regularly refer to, building the machine. If you have a machine and you can be a part of oiling the machine, that's where being able to show the vision and getting other people to think the way I have in terms of the way I look at a problem and trying to come up with a solution, just the efficiencies of how to go about getting the end result faster or better than doing it on your own. I think that AI will play in a lot to how we go about looking at things and bringing different perspectives that you may not be considering. So, thinking about how you can plug the information into AI differently so that you get that better outcome, so that you can put those automations in place, so that you can step away and actually be less dependent and reliant on having yourself be involved. That's where I see a big part of this, like just being able to step away like once a week and be able to not have to think that things are running as smoothly as they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your perspective. Where can our listeners who want to learn more about you and follow your business, where can they find you and follow you?
Yeah, please check out our website, connectuscorp.com. That's ConnectusCorp.com. That'll give you some more information about what we do. And then, follow us on LinkedIn. We're posting daily, giving use cases and different other information about how we're helping businesses do mobility better. Outside of there, we're posting more and more on YouTube. So we're trying to get content out just to bring more information to our audience. And we'd love for you guys to follow us and give us feedback, leave comments, let us know how we can do better.
Great. And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share, subscribe, leave us a review, and as always, stay human. Thank you for listening to this episode of Human Work After AI. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.